going to take a look at your store together real quick. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So this is your store, Quintessential Achievers. First of all, just like the branding is really great. And we kind of talked about this a little bit before we got on this call, but I knew walking into this that we're probably not going to have a lot of time to spend here at your store. Like this is probably going to be a pretty short audit. And the reason that I know that is because number one, I've seen your product so many times, but number two, this summer you actually were part of an intensive profit boosting boot camp within RTA, a small group coaching. And we spent a lot of time on SEO and search engine optimizing products. But as you can see here, your resources, they look great. I mean, they look really professional. One of the first things that I do is I'm looking for the keywords that you're using. Are they appropriate? Are they something that a buyer is going to type into the search engine? And you mentioned right before we hopped into this audit that the main purpose or the main goal that you have for 2024 is to drive traffic. So we said, okay, we're going to talk about driving traffic, but before we do that, we want to make sure that we're getting all the traffic that we can out of the TPT search engine. And it kind of makes it a little bit difficult when we're talking about a niche like special education, where we're talking about a smaller, although still a large group of teachers, but a smaller group of teachers. Naturally, the amount of traffic that there is that you're going to have organically is going to go down the more niche that you get, right? But we still want to make sure that we're taking full advantage of the TPT search engine. So immediately I'm seeing you're using search engine friendly keywords, WH questions, short story, task cards, reading comprehension, short stories, WH questions. Those are all keywords that I would expect to see. I think one of the things that I might think about doing is maybe going a little bit more broad in a portion of some of your products. And let's see what the competition is for, let's say I do short stories, special education activity, and I go just a little bit more broad. I can see that for some of your resources, they should be able to rank. In fact, look at there. There's one right there. There's one of your resources. So if you think about like, oh, you saw another one too. Was there another one up there? Oh, look at that right there. Perfect. So this is a really great example of when some of your resources start to get a little bit more traction, they start to get more reviews, maybe go in and switch up some of your search terms to go just a little bit broader. So I would venture to say that like this one right here says social story, SEL activities. I'm wondering like, why is this has fewer reviews than yours does? I'm wondering why. Yeah, it's like, why is that one ranking higher? Sometimes they're just like a weird, something weird or random will pop up in there. We don't want to necessarily let it discourage us, but sometimes that might be a good indicator that maybe this particular search term, it's not quite sure what we're looking for. So like short stories, activity for SPED. Maybe I try something like that. Let's see here. I'm definitely getting some different activities now. I'm not really seeing like this one doesn't have SPED, which is really interesting. This one doesn't have SPED. This one doesn't have SPED. So that tells me that probably it may not be a great search term. Like maybe there aren't very many people searching for that specific set of keywords, but just to kind of make sure that you're putting those keywords into your titles, the little bit more broad ones, because there's a space for it. So even using words like an activity versus maybe task cards or WH question, like what if I do WH question activity for SPED instead of WH question task cards and giving a specific activity, like there's a chance that you could rank for that. So just kind of doing some experimenting with that. And sometimes it's kind of tough because you don't necessarily, like you don't want to like roll the dice and like mess it up. But if you have an activity that you're like, this isn't getting a lot of views, let me just see what happens if I change it from task cards to activity and see what happens then it's a little bit lower risk. So maybe starting with something that you know, like, okay, well, this isn't getting a lot of traction on its own. Let's just go ahead and give it a try. But so far, what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing you're using WH questions. I see it in your snippet. I see it in your title, short stories, task cards, reading comprehension. The only thing that I'm not seeing here is I'm not seeing special ed in this particular snippet. So you do want to make sure that every single keyword that you have handpicked to put inside of that title, that you're repeating it down inside of the snippet, because we know we picked those for a reason. And if you're anything like me, sometimes I'll go in and I'll change the title, like doing quick edit, and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to add this keyword in, or I'm going to adjust this title, but I don't always open it and fully edit it and go back in and look at the snippet.
Right.
So kind of going back and revisiting those things. Otherwise, you're tagging your standards, which is great. Your covers look amazing. For some of these, I know some of these are probably a little bit older. So I know that you know about using a value grab. So like right here, 5 boom card decks, that would be a value grab. That would be something that I would recommend putting here, like X number of task cards. Or here you've got print and digital as that, but you might even consider using some sort of value grab that's a little bit more geared towards like quantity over the quality of print and digital. So once upon a time, print and digital was a great value grab. And that's not to say that it's still not important today, but I feel like it's less important now than it was back, during the pandemic when people were teaching more remotely. You've got this one, 6 sets for the bundle. I mean, most of these are like really, really great. And I know you know all about the value grabs, but definitely going in and just double checking, beginning with those bestsellers, double checking some of those things. Otherwise, your store looks fantastic.